If you're thinking about housing for your loved one with a developmental disability, you might just be going down the wrong path. If we want our loved one with a developmental disability to live their best life, housing can be a slippery slope, or that thought of housing. So in this video, I want to share with you what you need to know to support your loved one with a developmental disability to live their best life by thinking about creating a home, not just thinking about housing. I'm Eric Gall, a family member and a family coach. So why is thinking about housing a slippery slope, or can it be even a waste of our time? And I want to talk more about the idea of housing, and then we're going to switch gears into a different perspective for you. So when we think about housing, we start to think about the physical building. Like, what is that physical building? And it really comes down to a question of affordability. And affordability is certainly a challenge for many people with a developmental disability and their families, right? So the thing is, when we bump into this affordability question, a bunch of things happen. We can get stuck and not know what to do. And maybe we just get kind of put on a waiting list, and then we're waiting, right, on that waiting list and not taking much action. Or we can start to think, how do we group resources together, right? We're trying to overcome this affordability question, and it leads us to, okay, well, maybe we can group the resources of several families or several people with developmental disabilities, and maybe we can solve the affordability question there. But then that leads us to segregated living for people with disabilities. And the way of segregated living has been proven to reduce the freedoms that a person has, to reduce the choice a person has, to reduce the amount of control that person has in their life. And it doesn't lead to very good outcomes. In many instances, very bad outcomes. So can you see how this is like a slippery slope when we're thinking about housing and kind of the path that it's can lead us down, and has led many down before? So what can we do instead? We can look at creating a home, right? So housing, or the physical building, is only part of the equation. So I want us to think about home. And this is the type of thinking that I've gone through with the Oak Park families, right, of the Oak Park family group, who helped their 8 sons and daughter to move into their own individualized home, right? So not segregated living. Each individual thought about what their own home would look like and what would be best. That is where we started with the thinking with each individual family and person. That's the thinking that we went through with my sister, right? And my sister now being in her own home. So, and this is the work that I do with families in the Plan My Future course as well, right? So to think about creating that awesome, ordinary vision for home. So where we need to start, what does home mean? What does home mean to you? What does home mean to your family member? Well, for many of us, it means a sense of safety. It means a feeling of belonging or family. It means friends. It means being able to invite over who I want to invite over and keep out who I want to keep out. It means your stuff. It means freedom. It means being able to run around in your underwear on Saturday morning if you want to do that, right? To put your stuff wherever you want it, right? So home means all of these things to us. So can you see how if we just start thinking about housing, we're forgetting all of those things that home mean to us? So we really need to start from a place of designing what the ideal home would be with your loved one. And how do you start? Well, you start to think about maybe where. So like what community? You start to think about who would be best to live with. Maybe the person wants to try living on their own. Maybe they want to live with a roommate or another family member. What type of home? Many different types of home, right? So again, still thinking about the physical building, but just thinking about the types. Is it an apartment? Is it a townhouse? Is it a condo? Etc., right? And really importantly, what does that home environment look like? What does that best home environment look like for the person to be able to thrive in, right? And we want to start with this thinking, because starting here is going to lead to better outcomes and a better life, right? So this is where we need to start. We need to start thinking about designing the best home and then figuring out the how after. right? So start with designing what would be best, and then from there, start to figure out the how, rather than starting with the how to get the physical space, right? So different starting point and leads to a much different result. I hope that this was helpful. And I know like sometimes it can feel like our family member with a developmental disability can just live with us forever. But for most of the time, in most of the cases, that's just not true or not possible. So this leads us to thinking about home, right? And again, I know the challenges that come up with affordability and supports questions also come up as well. So, I talked about what we can do and from a starting place and thinking about designing the best home with our loved one. But it can also be helpful to hear what other families have done. Not to say that, you need to carbon copy what other families have done, but there's an opportunity on September 30th to hear from 3 of the Oak Park family group families on the process that they went through on helping their loved one with a developmental disability to create their own home, the thinking behind it, what they did, what's working, what the challenges have been, and it can be helpful to hear those types of things from other families. And we're going to think about, for you, how you can work with your loved one to start designing the best home with your loved one. And that's where it really starts. Feel free to register for that. It's completely free. I'll put a link below the video here, and leave me a comment as well if this thinking is helpful, right? Housing versus creating a home, and how creating a home can lead to a much better life for a person. So leave me a comment. Feel free to share this video if it's helpful for someone, and register for the free event with the Oak Park Family Group. I think it can be really helpful to and inspiring to see other families and what they've done. And you can register for that at empoweringability.org/Oak Park. I'm Eric Gall. Together, let's take a step forward.